Welcome, everyone. Welcome if you are out there. We're going to hang out for a couple of hours and receive some awesome wisdom and guidance and energies from the guides. I'm really excited because I feel like we all need it today as we're walking into some interesting energies. And if you're new, welcome. We have a couple of people in the room who I think are new. And if you're out there and you're new, we're so happy you're here. We're at the Flower of Life Institute, and we are an organization that is focused on raising human consciousness, which is, I think, the crux of everything that we need to focus on today. And we have many movements. I know you guys out there and in here know of our various activities and stuff, but just for those who don't, we have a kids movement that is exploding. Check that out. We have a parents movement that is exploding, which is so needed today because of all of the changes that are taking place in education. As we catch our breath on that as parents. My work is shifting. We're coming to a close with Lightworker Inner Circle 19, which is my latest course. Yeah, good stuff. I liked it. It was, it had a kind of Egyptian flair. We're talking about prosperity and abundance. This Monday is a live Q&A, so it's a 2-hour live Q&A. So bring your questions and we'll get all of those answered. And then I just want to kind of share that I've been receiving some downloads about a special offer I'm going to do in December. Some of you may have done my workshops, like back in the day when we had the expo and live events were a thing. I used to bring small groups together and we would do a workshop, and I would tailor that to the people coming. So we would place an intention that whoever was coming, we would just channel in not only concepts, intellectual topics and things, but energetic transmissions, activations, meditations. So the first week in December, I think it's the 3rd and the 4th, it's the Thursday and Friday, I am going to offer a remote workshop, and it is entitled through the guides, A Turning Point. And they're alluding to the fact that as we move into December, and really even right now, they're kind of seeing this turning point, like this pivotal moment in time where things are starting to really collide. And we feel that, do we not? Oh my gosh, I feel that so big. So what they're going to do is they're going to explain, they're going to give us a huge discourse on planetary transition, how they see things right now, how we can navigate it, and how we can hold our frequency during it, which I think is the most important consideration. And so many of us have been doing that already. I know you guys in the room, you guys out there, thank you for holding the frequency during these very auspicious times. So watch for that. I'll post it. I'll promote it in the Facebook groups and email and all of that good stuff. So, and we're here to channel, and I always like to catch everyone up a little bit on some of the themes that are coming in. And I don't have too much to share. I think we're going to spend most of the time channeling. I've already been connecting with some guides, so I think I know where we're going, but it's always fun to let that unfold. But it's just been, it's such an interesting time to observe, hasn't it? Like all the emotion and the trauma and the fighting and the polarity aside, really to be here on Earth at this time is kind of incredible, right? When you just have those moments where you're like, holy moly, like this is epic, right? It's totally epic. So I have, very uncharacteristic of myself, been going down this weird rabbit hole. Now, I do not pay attention to government stuff whatsoever. I just have restricted my time and energy and attention from all of that stuff many years ago. But for some reason on my YouTube feed, all of these like Senate hearings have been coming up, and so I've just been diving in, like, again, very unusual for me. I've been listening to it while I'm making dinner. And I had to pause on this and go, this is weird. What is this all about? Well, as I'm watching this stuff, I'm really in awe because what the guides told us long ago, if you look back or listen back to any of the channeling, was that the old grid, which was like the third dimension and everything that we created there, was going to get really unstable. And it was imbalanced, it was hierarchical. We created something new, so it was going to have to kind of deconstruct and disassemble, right? Well, I'm watching these Senate hearings, right? And I'm watching them go round and round on all of these topics and things like I didn't even know, laws that are insane, right? I'm thinking, how is this even human? But the thing is, at the end of each hearing, there's no resolve. No, there's no like yes, no. It's just like a vicious cycle of insanity. And I'm kind of chuckling, even though it's not funny. But I'm thinking this is exactly what they were talking about. Like to interact and to play in that reality, it's like beating your head up against the wall, right? I mean, just nothing. And the problems keep getting bigger and harder to believe, right? And so, what I took away from this is how real this grid shift is for us. Yet, when we interact with it, we really have to keep in mind that we are creators. And so, we're still kind of holding on to these grid points and these matrices and stuff with our attention. And I mean, listen, if we can stay neutral, we can observe. And I think that's where a lot of us are, we're very neutral. We know what's here. We want to observe it because we need to know. I mean, my gosh, we have families, kids, we have mortgages, we have jobs. I mean, we need to know. We need to know this stuff. But I was reading a chapter in Epitime because I was editing, and it was really kind of running parallel to this weird experience I was having of dabbling in this government stuff. And the chapter is entitled Understanding It All. Because don't we want to? We come here and we're like, we want to know the meaning of the universe. I want to know why I'm here and all, the stuff. And in this chapter, it's kind of funny because the guides allude to the fact that we could never understand it all through the construct of thought, like through the linear perception that we have. We're not meant to do that. We're not meant to do that. But we are born with this kind of natural curiosity. We have this natural curiosity. And when we awaken after having been suppressed in that area for so long, it's natural for us to go on these, right, periods of time where we're hunting and we're gathering all this information and we want to understand, because it's kind of like we're making up for lost time. We were curious and we were told that was a waste of time. You can't go down there, you can't do that. That's not a viable path for you. So we've done this, and that's cool. Like, I think that's good. We need to go through these periods. But what the guys were saying was, for consciousness to expand, it has to go through periods of rest where it relies on what it knows and operates in the knowing. So, for example, we had this big Facebook shutdown thing, right, not too long ago. And I mean, come on, we all know who the bad guys are. We've done that research. We've been there. We know what's going on. It's pretty easy to kind of start swimming in that. What's happening? What are they doing? Who's talking about it? What are they saying, right? But what the guides say is if consciousness rests in what it knows, more information is going to come to light. And that's how we interact with this stuff. So really, where we find ourselves today, and I talked a little bit about this last time, is this interesting period where we're learning how to be quantum, because we become very quantum. We're working with quantum time. We're working in a higher speed of vibration. We have this ability to instantaneously manifest. But we have to also understand that we have to rest in what we know so that all of that ability that we have within to work within knowing, which is our sentient or our cognitive and sentient ability to utilize what the mind brings in, but also what our intuition tells us, which is meant to blend, we're not going to do very well. Right? We're going to find ourselves going down those rabbit holes and interacting with that stuff out of alignment. So this chapter is really saying we have to, at times, look at these situations like Facebook, whatever it may be, and say, okay, we know what's going on here. It's, rest in that. We're going to rest in that. We're going to shift our attention somewhere else. And in these moments of rest, consciousness expands. And it takes our attention, it kind of navigates us to things that are best for us to do and for us to know and how we serve. So in the course I just did on prosperity, there were some really good themes that came in about this as well. And I think it was not last week, but the week before, the theme or the topic of the transmission was the energy of exchange, which is like a rotating universal vibration that comes with us. Because even though, we're here with this divine plan that we carved out, and everything that we need around us to source, to allow that to unfold, is also here, it sometimes comes through the hands of others. And that's what unity consciousness is. Human connection is like a gateway to receive. And we've not really operated that way in a very long period of time. We have in the business world, right? We've been like sales and marketing focused. We've got to get the client. The client is the avenue to the money. But that's not what they're talking about at all. They're saying that prosperity relies upon people connecting with people and ideas being shared and energy being shared and, resources and all of these things. So we're experiencing this period right now where the energy of exchange is really limited for us in physical, in material. We literally see it, like cargo ships are sitting in the ocean and docked and nobody's moving, right? That is a total reflection of our energy fields, right? It's a part of that disintegration, really. It's not to say that that isn't going to change and supply and, material's good. We need material, supply and demand and all this stuff. It's just preparing to come up in a new vibration. It's preparing to come into a new way of being that isn't implicated by a central source, right? All of this stuff has been running through a centralized source. So really, when we look at the difference in grid systems, we're looking at centralization versus decentralization. But what our goal is right now is to get that motion and energy of exchange moving in our vibration. And we think, well, what in the heck are we going to do? Yeah, we can't do anything about this, right? But it's the little things, right? The guides said in this course, we have to give as much as we want to receive. It's really an equal flow of balance. And that is how we were designed. Things flow in and things flow out. So our goal right now is to put out as much energy as possible. And that can be astral, etheric if we want, but I think it also has to be physical. Like we right now are trying to find creative outlets and paths for our service, for our product, for how we interact in the world beyond what the world is offering. And that's how the fifth dimension is going to come about. It sounds really defeating in a way because we're like, well, gosh, we don't know what that is. But if we rest in what we know and allow all that stuff over there to keep churning in its spiral of nothingness, we're going to have more energy available to us to do these things, to work in the world, to have inspired action, right? To follow guidance, to find those paths that we can serve others so we can then be served. Because I guarantee, and this is what we learned in the course, someone, something, a whole collective of people out there need something from you. They need your attention, they need your support, they need your energy, even if that isn't conditional on anything else, and especially, I think, at this point in time, if it's not conditional. And we kind of been wrestling with this a little bit in the course, So if we have a centralized grid and a decentralized grid, we have to consider that this new grid, or the 5D, or the new Earth, is operating in an open source potential. Straight to source, no interruptions. Nobody's capping things for us. Nobody's limiting things for us. Nobody's defining things for us. We are here to receive straight from source. So to get into that mindset, we have to find a way to implement that in physical. We open source something, not everything, something that makes sense, that helps others, even if that's just in your own neighborhood. That is the motion or the energy of exchange that brings it back into your life. This brings people into your life, which the guide said is the most valuable currency we have. Human connection, totally stifled in the old grid. Human connection is like something we're not allowed to do. But that is the most valuable resource we have to create, believe it or not. Right? So we're kind of getting a little shift in mindset that the guides are bringing in about how to work with not only, I think, frequency and vibration, but how to be ambassadors in physical, right? So that we're not only serving, but we're being served. So the caveat to this is that we have to manage money too. It's like we got to pay our mortgage, and I had this question come up with someone in the course who's starting to feel slighted, like I'm giving so much, but my personal finances being affected. I'm feeling like I can't pay my bills. And this is not at all what the guides are talking about, right? When we have these scenarios going on, this is where we need to be more creative, where how we value our time and energy is something we have to reconsider. So if you're giving something that's physical and that requires some physical effort, surely put some kind of condition on it that values your worth. Because the guides are even showing us in this course that price, literally, like we put a price on something, means nothing. It's like a mirage. When we connect with people and we get that motion of exchange going, that amount, it expands and it contracts and it shifts and it morphs, and we get more opportunity. That's really what it's about. We're going multidimensional. So we're trying to not just serve in this linear way, where we have this condition wrapped around serving and we receive something back. We're expanding out and we're fanning out from that, where what we do in our neighborhood is service. How we take care of our families and our kids, that's service. And yeah, we still have our service and our product or whatever that may be, and that's another area, an avenue for us. But I think we're really taking inventory right now of how we see those things in the world and maybe reprioritizing them a little bit so that we can walk through this time a little bit better than what we think we can in our heads or what we're being shown we can, really. In mass media. So I'll leave you with one more thing and then we'll see if we have any questions and we'll just let the guides go for it. In session, what I've been finding a lot is there's this kind of delay going on, and that we might feel that too, like a pushback on our ability to create or to move new things forward. This has happened in my own work. And I've literally had my guides come in and say, it's not time. If you were to put this out into the world right now, people don't have the capacity to see it because there's too much going on in the hologram of our personal lives with our own families and our livelihoods and all of this stuff that sometimes what we're creating, what we're preparing to put out is going to be stalled. And it's not because we're doing something wrong. It's not because we're failing, right? We are operating in divine time. So that means everything is going to come to the surface in the perfect time it must, when it is called for and required by the people who need to receive it. So I want to just send that out there to those of you who are feeling stuck or stalled. This is a great time to create new things. But sometimes if they're moving slowly in the world, we need to consider that our attention needs to go elsewhere. All right. Anyone have any questions, comments? Yeah? Good. I'm glad that resonated. Okay, good.
I just have a question about focus. Like I feel like my focus has been so spread out over so many things. I'm just completely discombobulated right now.
You're not alone.
So I didn't know if that was like I'm trying to
keep up with a new vibrational speed.
Yeah, figure out which way I need to go, and then I don't know if how I can better hear the guidance, I guess.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things that I want to share because that is a common concern right now with a lot of people. So here's my first thought. We are in a higher vibration, open to receiving more parts of ourselves from other dimensions. And this has been really cosmic lately. So in other words, we're retrieving soul fragments from Pleiades and past lifetimes and Arcturus and Atlantis. And these can create a lot of paths and avenues for like interest. Really, it springs up first as interest. So we might think, well, oh my gosh, I want to study this and I want to get trained in this and I want to, right? And that's okay. But what you need to do is just choose what resonates with you most in the moment, because what's going to happen when you start moving towards it, even if you just choose one or two paths, is that it kind of collapses onto itself. It all folds together. So you might be going through a period where you're meant to explore many things. And what the guides would say is this is an awakening oftentimes. We're like awakening to things that we already know that we're just being reminded of. And that's just as important as anything that we create, in the world. But also you're saying, you want to hear the guidance, right? Well, if you're being inspired to follow certain paths, you probably are. You just want a more visceral, right, type of confirmation of it. I'll tell you something that I've been struggling with a little bit personally, and the guides have been giving me some messages about, is distortion. We're dealing with a lot of unnatural distortion right now. We have a lot of people who are struggling on the planet. We have a lot of density that's clearing. And we have, unfortunately, a lot of frequency modification that is taking place. And so at times, it can be really hard to get into that space where you connect to your guides or your higher self or whatever it may be. My suggestion is this: just state intention. Make intention a part of your day, a part of every hour if necessary, and allow that to guide you as opposed to you having to retrieve and receive something. So what I often do in the morning is I wake up and I just, in meditation, state an intention for my higher self. Carry me through this day. Show me what path I need to take and when. Show me what I need to help me out. It's magical. I'm not kidding. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's magical. Like you will have a thought like, oh, I don't know, I need a plumber. And a literal plumbing truck will drive past you on the street. Like that's what I've experienced. And if we can stay in that state of receiving as opposed to trying to retrieve, it's like more expansive. Sometimes when we're trying to get guidance, unbeknownst to ourselves, we get really resistant, right? Because we're like, what the hell? Where's the guidance, But if we can let that go for a while, we really open up. And then if we set intention and we stay present, and that's another key, right? We have to stay present because that's where the quantum is. If we're allowing the changing tide of the planet to move our mind into the past and into the future and all this crazy, which let's be real, we're human. Like this is a tough period. So we just have to be conscious and bring ourselves back, right? And listen, nobody's an expert at this, but I think that's really where it's at. Like if you can stay present and out of that resistance and know that, I always get Quan Yin on this. I love her. She kind of just floats in. Quan Yin, she's just so loving. She says, you're not going to make a mistake. We don't make mistakes. Like we think we do because we choose a path and it's hard. Or we get there and we're like, oh, I don't really like this anymore. But I guarantee you got everything you needed. And you're being rerouted somewhere because of the path that you were on. Or there was something you were supposed to learn, right? So we've been trained to look at our past and go, oh, we made all these mistakes, so we can't trust ourselves. We obviously don't have the guidance, but we're always exactly where we're meant to be, So relax into that and yeah. Helpful? Good. Anyone else? Okay. So we're going to do a trans-channeled experience. We're going to bring the guides in. I have no idea who we'll hear from today, but we will provide a message that's suitable for all of you out there and all of you in here and everyone else who comes to this recording years later, because it's quantum and it has vibrations and codes and everyone will take away something different. But we do take questions and we'll pass the mic in the room. So after we get a general message, if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll pass the mic. And then the door just opened. Yeah, here they come. Here they come. And if you guys, we're having some spirits in the room. So if you guys out there have a question, you just post it in the chat and we'll take those questions as they come in. We do these events for free, but we do take donations if you are able. It is not required, but we do pass a basket. So the donations today will go to the room rental, and overages go into our programs. Our program, Seed of Life School. We have Fruit of Life coming, which is a parent movement. Everything else, Awake Journal, many, many other things. No expo this year, but hopefully next year. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just astrologically speaking, we kind of, investigate and look, and it's a big effort, right? It's a big effort financially, energetically, to put together and have it fall apart, right? So next year we're hoping. We'll see. In the meantime, you'll always find us online. We'll keep doing these events, and hopefully we'll have some people coming in, like we've had in the past. So I'll just take a deep breath and prepare to receive however's best for you. We're going to work with Mary Magdalene today. As we all join together, we are speaking through many, but the wisdom of Mary Magdalene, of multiple masters, is present. We hold in our hearts great regard for the human spirit, knowing that it is something that often is not felt, but is seen by us in the astral. It is beautiful and strong and vibrant and glowing and a part of your everyday experience, something that is your birthright to claim. It is this spirit that we come to speak of, because in the awakening that is taking place today, the spiritual part of you is becoming somewhat closed-minded. Through the teachings of others, it is placed in a box, and it is following certain identities and certain modalities from the past, and this is not wrong. These occasions to awaken through the teachings of many have been taking place throughout history, and from our vantage point, will continue on the earth. Yet there's a part of you that knows there is something to understand far greater than what you have been taught. Your spirit, your essence, has been present in all of these timelines. The things that you are choosing to interact with are often those that you have had a hand in creating. The processes, the teachings, they have come through your own channeled connections. They have been a part of what you have shared in ancient schools and temples. You are here now because there is something purposeful about your past. You have been an intergalactic being, and you have been an ascended master. You have been here as a healer. You have forwarded new ways of thinking. You have brought together schools of thought. You have farmed the land, and you have tended to Gaia's every need. But you are here in a different timeline. And we know that you can feel this spirit. It is so massive that it calls your attention to everything that is not worthy of the human collective. And it causes you to pause and to wonder what it is you will do about all of the things that you know humanity deserves far better. But there are several complicating factors to stepping into the fullness of this spirit. It is a part of you that does not operate in linear. It's a part of you that cannot see any disconnection between dark and light, between those who are causing these anomalies and those who are being challenged. Because you see, spirit is not separate of anything that it interacts with. It is a blended energy that comes with you and is perceiving itself through a vehicle of consciousness. So this means that perhaps you are not here to change all of the things that your soul is observing that is going wrong, but you are here to reclaim the parts of you that have been forgotten. The parts of you that could not see the world in the way that it is shown today. You see, ascended masters come to the earth and they are trained long before. And while they do not recognize themselves as a master at the time, they realize that their perception is the most quantum tool at their disposal. If they are standing face to face with a criminal or one who is diseased, they see nothing but perfection. They are standing amidst a great storm. They see nothing but calm. They challenge their body and their mind and their emotions to synchronize with will in such a way that the entire earth shifts. And this is the magical quality that a master or a god is known for. It has less to do with practice and more to do with a sense of beingness, expanding the self wide enough to allow everything that is universal, that is made of God, that is one, to come through form and interact with every other thing that has forgotten this. Because this is what you are staring at today. You are staring at a world, a human race, a reflection of beings that have forgotten who they are. So to hold that space of spirit and purity of connection at a time when others cannot find it will serve you well. Because ultimately, the master knows that in a time of crisis, there is a great reorganization taking place. Energy is preparing to find new pathways. It is rearranging itself to new creative insights and potentials. And this will take time because in a linear plane, physical is a different manifestation than vibrational. It creates for you something to interact with that is different than the consciousness that you have, so that your consciousness can now adapt to something new. This is all that is happening in the world. You are a vision in this moment of every master that is speaking through this channel. You are the vision of every entity and intergalactic being that you have ever known. You are the great councils. You are the universe. You are God. It is just in the moments that this remembrance evades you that you struggle the most. We want to bring a very succinct and more physical expression of this to you now, and then we are pleased to open for whatever questions are necessary. At a time on the earth when humanity has been taught to fear, it is calling its attention to its past through its vibration. Because in the future, what lies ahead of you, there can be no fear. There is no emotion that exists beyond this moment. There is no need to project beyond what takes place today, because it is a void. It is a container of potential through which you are projecting. But that projection is so very important. When you are in fear, you are calling attention to things from the past, and you are bringing them with you into your current vibration so that they may follow you into the next step and the next and the next. Fear is somewhat like putting on an old overcoat that doesn't fit so well. We are used to the feeling of it, and we know it will protect us from the storm. And even though it is sunny and there is no rain in the forecast, we bring it along just in case we may need it later. What we are asking is that you take off the overcoat and you be willing to set it aside just for a moment, to leave it behind, knowing it is always there in moments that you need it, that you may turn and look to the past and you may claim it, but to move freely into the future with no confines is to understand your power. To move freely into the future without any predetermined projection is how the guides and the beings and the gods that you so revere and ask for guidance were trained. To be this clear is something that you are striving for. And it does not take much effort, only a momentary return to home, the love that exists within your heart, and the essence and the spirit that you brought to earth. We're so very pleased to take questions as they may arise.
I have a question regarding the old overcoat. So I was raised Catholic, and my family is very religious. One of my brothers is a priest. My parents are very involved in the church, and they are very adamant, I guess is be the word, about what they believe, and so persuasive. Like me being here would not go over. I guess I accept them for how they are, but I don't really share what I think because I know it's not going to get accepted. So is that being out of integrity and not being truthful? Now I'm on another.
We are Divine Mother, and we are very pleased you are here. The purest love is not dependent upon the return from another. And this is something that humanity has struggled with because it has not been the foundation upon which you have learned to interact with others. There is a dependency upon which love is offered and received. And that dependency comes from many sources. You are speaking to us of religion, and this is one we know very well. For within the confines of religious teaching, there are many influences through which humans have adopted certain imprints. These are carried within the DNA, and they do cause a certain vibrational anomaly that restricts a soul's ability to love in the way that it was always designed. And this is what you are standing up against today. The forces of nature are pulling families apart because those who are not able to see the way in which fear is implicating their consciousness are having a very difficult time interacting with those who do. Yet, what we want to explain is this. While it is difficult for you to accept that your parents may not love you for who you are, it is love that is the foundation through which they are expressing their fear. And if you are to keep this in mind, it will shift your frequency to not only become stronger in your will, in how you participate with them and within the world, but especially in how hurt between family members will continue to perpetuate through lineages. Because we see this ultimately as trauma. When there is a part of you that has transitioned and expanded beyond old belief systems, and a part of you that still wants to be loved and accepted by those who don't see the new aspects of your life. These are in great conflict with each other. So where we're directing you is not to resolve what's happening in the outer world, but to resolve the inner conflict that you have so that you may find yourself in the situation where you can interact lovingly with family while still placing appropriate boundaries upon your safety and how you are able to take away something from these interactions that are beneficial. This is where we think things become very tricky. You see, those who believe or have been trained to believe that God is an authoritarian figure who is judging them for something are only coming up against a lineage and a past that has manifested through time in so many different ways. And since you are breaking free of this genetic template, you are not seeing any relevant connection. And so what you're striving to see is that your family is only showing you the distance between the new life that you have created and the one that you lived before. And it is not wrong because we make these choices before we arrive. We choose families, we choose parents and children and even religions to better understand the human condition, to enter at a place where we know we have to break apart some very densely configured pattern. And this is what you are doing. So perhaps seeking their approval is not something that you should be concerned with, but allowing them to be where they are and allowing your approval to come from within you is your spiritual passage. And as difficult as it seems to be in the world today, we can apply this to so many other circumstances. We are not here to change the minds of others, nor are we here to interrupt their belief systems. We are here to live our lives as examples. So perhaps what we can say is that they are receiving from you in this anomaly just as much as you are receiving from them. What this contract between you and your parents ultimately is fulfilled by is your truth. The more you walk this path of becoming and the more transparent you are about it, the more they are receiving what it is they wanted to see from you just as much as you have chosen to see from them. And we know this doesn't help because it feels very lonely to be in the world with a family that doesn't support who you are becoming. But you have an alternative family now. One that is here in physical and one you have yet to even meet. And this is what taking these paths will allow. We will still hold on to those that we love, but our relationships may change. And we will find that the world is our family and we are more loved than we could ever imagine.
Thank you. So I have a question in regards to our activating our crystalline DNA. So last year I received my upgrade. Some people might have called it other things here on this planet. And my spirit communicated with me within my body system that I was upgrading into my crystalline DNA, activating and integrating my carbon DNA into my crystalline DNA. So I'd love to hear more about that, how many of us are. And it's helping me definitely connect more multigalactically and quantumly.
They're the Atlantean Dolphins. It is important for all of those who are gathered here to understand that the crystalline DNA is of dominant focus at this time, which seems contradictory to the lives that you are living, which may often feel very dense and grounded. But there are so many factors at play right now within Sophia and beyond that are accentuating these potentials. We have spoken much about the raise in Schumann frequency that we see as crystallizing her water, which also runs through you and replicates itself in your own human water and contributes to these strands activating. But also, we have noticed the plasmic rays and the solar rays intensifying to Earth as well. this must have an effect on the number of DNA strands that you will crystallize that are cosmic. Now, everyone is at differing levels of this because some are very focused on it. Some are placing a deliberate focus on their crystallization process, and because are accelerating faster than those who are not. But it does not mean that those who are not awakened are not also receiving these energies. So we do want to point out that those you consider who may still be existing in a different reality or a different hologram than you are no less receiving of these energies. And this is causing a great deal of inner turbulence and conflict. You may perceive it as resistance. We see it as awakening. The crystalline strands are incredibly beneficial for many reasons. Not only is your cosmic history stored there, but also your ability to interact with the physical plane in a quantum state is accentuated or intensified. But there are some dependent actions that we want to speak of, and perhaps a few caveats we want to share, because this history is not void of distortion. When you're working with the carbon-based strands, it is very well known that there are certain diseases that are passed on emotionally, mentally, or physically, for example. But it is not often considered that imprints of war, poverty, for example, are also passed on through these threads and strands. You see, the great spiral of time that exists in the universe replicates within your own DNA. So if this is the case in the carbon-based or physical strands, then the crystalline strands must also carry some relationship to cosmic wars, to certain diseases. And we're not saying this to disappoint you or to frustrate you, but to explain the power of vibration. Because it is more prudent now than ever when you are crystallizing these strands to pay attention to your frequency. Because there are so many potentials that are taking place on the earth that are not moving in the direction of peace, for example, if we are focused in these areas and activating crystalline strands, we can influence what happens on Earth through cosmic history. A better way to look at this is a storage bank of knowledge that you are able to put to use in a sentient way. So if you are placing your focus, especially in the next several months, on certain gifts and talents and abilities that you have, how they may be transitioning, and practicing them, you won't have to worry so much about your frequency because you'll be reaping the benefits and the rewards of the history that is there. But also, consider this. The crystalline strands are very powerful, but if they do not find their integration with the physical strands, they are not useful. We have to be embodied just as much as we are focused in the astral. And any imbalance in this way can cause humanity to not fully interact with some of these very valuable and sentient gifts in ways that make sense on the physical plane, where we can offer them as a tool or as wisdom. So our suggestion is this: to be as embodied as you are practicing these modalities is advised. To ensure that you are spending time each day navigating both worlds and both planes. But to put the intuition that you receive to use is one of the most advised steps that we can offer. This is somewhat, we'll say, delayed in humans today. The amount of intuitive guidance that they receive is far greater than the amount of trust and faith that they have in it to actually put it to use. Play with this, and we believe that all of you will find your perfect resonance with what you have already crystallized and continue the journey forward.
How do we step into our power and being all that we can be now in this time.
We are Isis. You see, as a physical soul, your power exudes you. As we have spoken, the great spirit that you are connected to is so massive, it goes beyond any single identity. But you have been raised in such a way to believe that you are small, to put yourself beneath others, to subscribe to things in the world that you must do beyond what your will desires. And these are the areas that require tending to just as much as any practice that we can offer. In fact, very slight and small steps towards freedom and sovereignty in your life will bring through the power that you are requesting, because you will see what is possible that in the past you have believed is not. What we have learned is that we are hybrids. We have come through the DNA potential of all races. And because of this, we can tap into any reality that we desire. The previous question has brought up the topic of crystalline DNA. And essentially, this is evidence that you are multidimensional. It is just that you have yet to put this multidimensionality into physical. And we think this is what you are speaking of when you refer to power. Power over your reality is not the physical force that you have been taught. It is actually a state of relaxation and observation that enables you to become the most powerful. Because what you are attempting to control or force through power is something that is showing you a unique aspect of life that is most beneficial for you to learn. And in these moments, we become the wisdom keepers of decades. We show up in all of the access to the Akashic records that we most need. So our advice to you and to many others who would ponder this question is to attempt to become more centered, more focused and relaxed and observant of the world and the patterns around you. Jump not to conclusions or to very quick physical actions. Use the breath as a catalyst to remain neutral and curious. You see, everything that is taking place has its resolve. And you are not attempting to know what that resolve is before its readiness to arrive. What you are attempting to do is be in the moment and to learn how to walk through that moment with power, with grace, with the ease of a god or a goddess. There is truly no difference between who you stand as today and who I am in this moment, other than your belief. Who you see yourself as in the world must be challenged on a daily basis so that this power that you request is felt. It is all of the things that you put in the way that are needing to be addressed. And to make it quite simple, because we know the inventory of those things may be great, affirm who you are on a daily basis. These affirmations are directions of consciousness. They bring in aspects of yourself that have been spoken of by Mary Magdalene herself in these transmissions. The parts of you that are the ascended master, that are the goddess, that you do not recall. If you affirm it as so, you will find evidence of it and opportunities to see it more clearly. You are moving into a period, a great age of awareness, where there is so much transparency that it may focus you on all that is wrong. Use that transparency for your benefit, to see what within you is right, to see everything on the earth that is moving in the direction of your desire. Even if that is only a slight bit, amplify it to its greatest extent. This is how we were taught to work with universal law and how we were able to manifest anything that was desired. But there is a part of my teaching that I also wish to share with you and those who are here who are interested. It has a great deal to do with self-care. You see, in my time, it was taught to revel in the sensory, to spend time choosing the things that were most pleasing to interact with in fragrance, in vision, even the very clothing that we would choose to place upon our skin had the purpose of accentuating our vibration. Every amulet and every jewel that we wore did not have to be of great expense, but only remind us that we were this close to the earth. We encourage you to treat yourselves this way at a time when it is most necessary. These very simple ways of being in the world will allow you to not have to effort at what we speak of, to not have to go into every false timeline and belief and clear it, because your vibration will soar and it will change your reality without much effort. We are all here to serve you in this way. We come forward as an order of sisters and divine feminine masters that revel in the frequency of Sophia and come to support you. So call on us often, and we are very pleased to serve.
Is Perth the origin of Earth time, or perhaps a portal where this time-space began?
We're the Native Aborigine Elders, and it is our pleasure to answer this question. While certainly this area is extremely potent, there are many that we consider anchor sites for Earth's meridians and connections to the universe. But Perth is very unique because it was one of the first that was researched, measured, and discovered. There is an entire inner Earth that many of you have contemplated, a multi-dimensional timeline experience with multiple races and beings that exist right now. This has been our area of exploration. We have gone on pilgrimage through these various portals and waterways to explore the wisdom of the inner earth beings and to bring it to the surface of the earth. So we certainly confirm that the potential to enter these portals and the existence of them in this geographic region is still existent and very strong. The history here is also something that is very important to explain, because the origins of the great seeders, the masters who came from multiple intergalactic star systems, arrived here first. They were to set their foot on this land to understand the network of vibratory exchanges that Earth herself would show them. They needed to understand where to build, where to place various technologies and temples. And to do this, they traveled a great distance, not in the way that you would today, physically, but astrally. And those of us who came after some of the first original purebred humans on the earth were taught in these ways. We were taught to tend to these various portals and intergalactic connections, to use them as a tool to receive information and wisdom from those who would support our endeavors. And you may still do this today.
I've been feeling so much excitement lately. It feels like we have reached a pivotal turning point. Is this what you see as well?
We're the Pleiadian collective, and we also acknowledge that there is so much happening that humanity does not see but can certainly feel. And the excitement is building in the astral as we observe all of the potentials that you are creating. To validate this feeling, we want to explain some of the vibrational observations that we are making. when humanity goes through any transition, when things are happening in your world that are causing you to make change, a great number of requests go out. These are silent requests that come through your consciousness that are heard and answered by source energy. You see, every conflict, every difficulty that you face already has a resolve. And the massive amount of energy and potential timelines that we see co-creating and colliding right now due to these requests is amazing. It is as if you have created an entire new earth that has yet to fully land. But even in your own lives, you are feeling the difference between where you stand on the earth plane and what you have created in the astral. And it is a phenomenal time to prepare for what is coming. Yet there are some time-space lags that we also must explain. And this is not to take that joy away. It is important that you hold these states of joy and anticipation, because what we're about to define is not stagnant. It is something that is changing on a daily basis through the combined vibration of all humans. There is a great deal of dissent on the earth, and we will define this dissent as inner conflict or resistance. Many are awakening to a life that they once knew that is not possible to easily achieve. And because of this, there is a great deal of sadness and fear and disillusionment we see within a great number of humans, because you have not been taught to trust the great unknown. And this is being capitalized on by a lower vibrational consciousness, because fear is just as potent a vibration as joy. In fact, if fear can be channeled, it can be used by collectives of both intergalactic beings and even some hybrid humans to create. So this has been what you have been negotiating with for a great deal of time, even going back a couple of years where some of this began, this disintegration and movement or change in your reality. But we're not worried about this so much. We're simply saying that it's causing somewhat of a backward-forward motion, where some who are in a great level or depth of fear or disillusionment are stalling the activities of those who are bringing in these massive quantities of timelines that are preparing to create the new. What we advise is this, that the amount of joy that you feel on a daily basis is far more powerful than the amount of fear that another can hold. Because even though we've said that fear is a powerful vibration, joy is a much higher one. It is something that many are not feeling today on the plane of the earth, but something to strive for. Because it only takes a slight few, a very small number of humans who are operating in that amount of joy to compensate for those who are not. And this will literally pull them out of time. Those who are having a drag or a draw, and even some who are very spiritually minded and consciously awakened, being implicated by those frequencies, pull them out of the old matrix, pull them out of a timeline anomaly that is spiraling to nowhere. So keep that joy at the forefront of your experience, and you are serving far greater than you know.
Do the guides have any advice on growing our own food and sourcing our water so we can be more independent?
We are the Lemurians. This is a question you are asking because it is a focal point for humanity in the future. And while many are concerned about the toxification of your soils and your waters, the great quantum possibilities and technological advancements of the future show us that you will be able to overcome this with great ease. It is our suggestion that if you are choosing to go these paths, that you are doing it in alignment with joy, as stated in the previous question. And this is why. Many are coming to terms with the fact that resources are going to become slight or tainted in some way of their access. And because of this, are using fear as the driving factor to create something to ensure their survival. And while we admit that when fear is used this way, it can lead to very positive outcomes, if it remains in your vibration and becomes the frequency through which you implant the earth and create these various gardens and water potentials, they will not be sustainable. It's hard to imagine that your physical activity could be imprinted with a certain vibration that would limit its success. But this is something that you must consider as you're moving into the fifth dimension, because you are different humans today than you were in the fifth dimension. So our advice is to not only go back to ancient civilizations, but to look forward to the future and to channel those future human beings who have seen the success of the way certain community gardens and waterways were created and treated, to look at sacred geometric design as a very advantageous tool to biometrically and geometrically reconfigure the concentrates and the counts of microbiotics in the soil. This is like being on a light ship and infusing a crop circle into the earth, where the vibration of a certain code becomes distributed through Gaia's own grids. So what we're saying here is it is not just the physical components that we suggest are most important. We know you understand those. These various techniques and technologies, such as hydroponics, for example, are something that are going to be very important to consider in the future. But using the tool of your consciousness, channeled connections, and various cosmic research, and blend the old and futuristic ways together into this timeline through your intuition. You see, you are all ambassadors and way showers in this way. There is no one modality that we think is better than another, other than what your heart and your resonance is showing. So if you have a desire to do this, take note. And then align perfectly with what you desire for the outcome. But take great advantage of any incoming bit of guidance and intuitive knowing that is offered, so that you may create something that has never been seen before.
Does technology operate with energy, which is source energy? Can technology have a soul? How will technology change as we heal and balance the earth?
We are the Arcturian Collective. It's our pleasure to offer our insights on what you are speaking of. Now, technology has taken quite a different definition and manifestation on Earth than the way it has in our galaxies, because we do not see technology necessarily as something physical. In fact, many of us are using alternate technologies that are very etheric and holographic, and we visualize and put them into use collectively. They become connected to our star system, to the consciousness of our star system and our collective. Even if we look at ancient civilizations, for example, like Atlantis, While there were certain crystalline components of these technologies, the main source was a connection through etheric channels into elements. But consciousness is always interplaying with technology. We do not necessarily see that the technology on your planet has its own consciousness yet. But the consciousness of the human race is interfacing with technology regardless of how it is being created. So we want to give you an example, first of how this is working currently and then how we might see it change in the future so that you understand how you are becoming more multidimensional and intergalactic. Currently, humanity is very concerned about man-made frequencies such as EMF and Wi-Fi and incoming 5G networks. Now, these technologies are very physical and they have been manifested through your consciousness. But what has happened through time is desire has been sent out in a way of self-service. Humans want certain things. They want to quickly communicate and receive information from across the globe. And a network was born to do this. But a consideration was never made for health, for interfacing with the physical body and the environment and earth. That was not a consideration that was at the forefront of human consciousness. If it had been, you may have seen technology evolve quite differently. Now, we can certainly say that there has been manipulation of the human mind, and there has been a swaying of consciousness and thought into very restrictive and self-serving patterns. So it is not your fault. In other words, you're living out a prophecy that someone else has put into place. But this is very easily shifted. So any technology that you see today that is physical is interfacing with consciousness and apt to change. And this means that those of you who are here today that are on the forefront of higher consciousness are challenged to envision and work with technology in complementary ways, or to bring your certain non-physical abilities and healing abilities to work with it directly. Ultimately, we believe that AI is somewhat of an artificial manifestation of some of our ancient and more intergalactic technologies, where a technology has been blended or merged with the race or consciousness of a specific planet. Now, in some of our star systems, this has been incredibly beneficial. And again, we want to take you back to Atlantis, a time in which vibrant elemental properties that are found within Earth and within the bodies of the Atlantean race were fused and operating in such a way that energy and accessibility to higher realms was possible. Now, that was implicated and infiltrated and came to a certain demise. But ultimately, this is something that can come back to the planet. And we do believe that future human races, future generations, some that are hybrid, some that are crystalline and of higher vibration, are here now to actually create what we are speaking of. For a time, you may see the lower vibrational potentials play out. Our advice to you is not to interface with them. The more that you do, the more they will continue the path of their lower vibrational purpose. The more that you choose to create technology to your liking, the more that technology will evolve in a way that is healthful and purposeful for all.
What's the relationship between the end times predicted in the Bible and what we are experiencing now?
We are the Elohim. You see, biblical accounts are merely a prophecy and a purposeful analogy of energetic influences combined with past physical history. It does not necessarily mean that when those influences return, the exact same manifestations will take place. Especially with biblical teachings, it is important to consider that there has been an overlay, a very purposeful and intentional distortion of how these experiences truly took place. And we think one of the most limiting parts of these interpretations has to do with the hiding of intergalactic presence. There was a great deal of intergalactic presence and support during these periods. So to in a linear way, account for biblical teachings in only physical accounts of vibration is something that can cause a great deal of fear. Certainly, we can confirm that you are in a period of very similar influence to the time of Revelations, where the earth was transitioning so quickly and was implicated by lower vibrational races and those in positions of authority, that certain destructive timelines emerged. But you must also consider that these are periods of timeline collision. It is where the great spiral of time and Akashic history is bringing back an open portal potential, where everything that you interact with has the ability to immediately be transmuted and upgraded. So perhaps what we are saying is you find yourself in similar energetic influences with similar timeline collisions and historic events rising from the ashes with a new consciousness and an ability to play out the story differently than what it was before. You see, from a multidimensional perspective, the time of Christ is something that still goes on. This is often not considered when you are translating this information. You believe that every time period has a beginning and ending, that every timeline is something very concrete and has not changed. But every decision that you have made as a human being, choosing one path and closing off another, has led to a split of time where things are still happening that your soul is involved in that you do not even know. We're not stating this to confuse you, but to help you keep an open mind as to the realm of possibility that you have brought to the earth. It is your choice to navigate and to mold and shape these timelines as they arise, and to lean back within some of the messages that have been already brought to light in this transmission. It is your perception of them that is most important. By the time a physical manifestation has come to pass, it has already gained so much energy and attention and vibrational matching in the astral realm that it is no longer worthy of your attention. We know it must play out, and we know you must deal with it from a vibrational and physical standpoint. But your perception is the golden rule through which everything becomes alchemized. You are always looking towards what it is you desire and not back at what it is you do not. This is ultimately why the Christ came. The resurrection of the Christ is not a feat that was accomplished by one man. It is a story that has happened throughout history in all dimensions and in all star systems. And it can happen today within you. It is the way that you choose to relate to all of this that allows it to occur.
I keep hearing of the importance of shadow work. Is it necessary that we have to go back into the past to recall the traumas and our reactions to what we were going through?
We are Mary Magdalene. we realize that shadow work is coming from a very genuine and purposeful place. Those of you who have come through spiritual awakenings in the last 10 to 15 years have been doing so in a very different time-space reality than you stand today. And at times it was necessary to walk these paths of past trauma solely because there was blocked emotion that existed within form. And it was necessary also to relieve that energy for the purpose of your physical bodies, continued ascension, and the ability of your soul to capitalize on its true identity, which has never been tied to any of this. What we have observed is that stepping into your past lives, or even past trauma in this one, has somewhat been a constant wheel of never-ending suppression. It is hard to know when to come out of the shadow anymore, because the depths of despair that humanity has faced, that has been passed on through the DNA, could seem endless. We may never know what has been passed on from our grandmothers, those who walked before us. But we may find, if we attempt to open those doors, that we are ushering it into our physical reality. So we suggest there are times where the shadow is important to acknowledge, and times when it is important to see the light. You see, within my own life, I was shown so much of the work that I had done before I arrived upon Earth. It is incredible to believe that you are here to accomplish great feats and then see yourself as an intergalactic soul preparing for the journey that you stand within. But these times are rarely focused on. How often is it that we go back into our past lives simply to reclaim the master that we were, the healer that we were, the architect that we were? We must begin to question not only what we have done wrong or what others have done wrong upon us, but the miracle of what we have done right, the co-creation that has been a part of our past. The moment we ponder the good that we have done before, light flows into form in such a way that the shadow is no longer necessary to work at, because it is no longer present in this amount of brilliance. And it is all the line of questioning that we use that tells us whether past life work will be supportive or destructive. If we are constantly focused upon those who have done us wrong and the pain and the trauma that we've experienced, we may never align our vibration with the new that we've created beyond it. So walk tenderly and very cautiously into shadow work today, because the quantum beings that you are, while needing to understand the basis for who you have become, do not need to spend as much length of time in these modalities as you have before. You are simply activating new parts of yourselves that are immediately healing the past and bringing it along in a way that is beneficial to serve others.
Given how very intense this time is, please suggest ways to cope or heal or maintain sanity when it feels like we've reached our limit.
We are Saint Germaine, and the Ascended Master Collective is pleased to also speak through the vibration of this channel's voice. We hear and feel every bit of what you are saying, and know that as humans it is not a difficult period of life. We want, in many respects, for you to feel this, not to suffer. But to be in the moment with how you feel in such a real way that has not been possible before. Because we believe that this is just as much a part of your transition as anything else. You have not been allowed to feel. You have suppressed your anger and your sorrow. You have suppressed who you are. But it is with emotional intelligence that you must go there, which is a different way of being in the world that many know. There's a certain sense of allowance that is so freeing when a soul can bear the weight of its experience without having to believe it defines them. So what we are alluding to here is emotional intelligence is somewhat like allowing yourself to feel whatever it is you do without holding on to that feeling. Knowing that it is not permanent. And we think it is the permanency of what it is you anticipate that is causing so much of the stress. We want to caution you that where you are going is uncharted territory. For so many of you, it is a life you have never known. And this can feel very frustrating and scary, but it is also so exciting. It is possible to feel frustration with the world, but to also feel excited for what is unknown. This is a sort of multidimensional type of energy that we want to get you into. And it doesn't require you to clear emotion or to even practice to meditate to center yourself. It's an observant force of consciousness that remembers you are physical just as much as non-physical. It blends the two. It helps you to step back and to be in the moment without having to be of the moment. And then we know the moment may go on. You may carry it with you into the next and into the next. And it may be prudent for you to take designated evaluations of lingering emotions that stay too long. In other words, to emote is not wrong, but to experience the same emotion for a very long period of time should be your alert that something is stuck. There is a boundary that you are not able to cross. And it is either within the world or within yourself. But the most prudent place to focus is always within the self. In these moments where the world is showing us no resolve, a great deal of conflict and polarity, we must only focus within ourselves to know that it is straightened out here. Because from a holistic viewpoint, we see more unified connection and more resonance than ever before. If you can be real with others in a compassionate way, if you can be real with yourself in a genuine and true way, you will rise above the destructive nature of judgments and finger pointing and anger, the things that match war and poverty and the things that need not be experienced here ever again. We want to take you through a process to help you feel what we are speaking of. So for a moment, those of you who are gathered, and if you are willing, find your center and begin to relax. Uncross your legs, uncross your arms. Breathe in deep. A gentle breath in the nose and out the mouth. Does not have to be active, does not have to be focused. This is the essence of breath. the constant inward and outward flow of pranic energy that expands and contracts your energy field. I want you to be here right now, in the space all around you, in whatever exists within your body, in this room, in your chair, with whatever noise exists, with whatever is calling your attention. But especially with whatever you feel. Without directing your emotional body, allow it to be present, to take forefront, to come forward, and to be exactly what it is. But do not place a label on it. We're not asking you to contemplate. Are you sad? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you excited? Are you uncomfortable? Just allow yourself to be whatever you are right now. But be willing to feel every bit of it. Place your attention, your awareness in whatever that feeling is. You're safe here. There is nothing complicating your vibration. Consciousness is simply observing what it feels in this moment. And as it is allowed to do so, that feeling blends into the next and the next. You may even feel a sense of certain alignment, where feeling is there, but it does not define you. You're losing the mental awareness of how feeling has become your identity, and letting go of where you have been limited by that identity. You are not what you feel. You are a human soul feeling. You are not your vibration. You are a human soul vibrating. You are not stagnant. You are eternally changing and flowing with the universe. You are one with all things, and you are one with yourself. And you're expanding right now. You'll forever remember, in any situation, to feel what is and observe yourself feeling. To participate in the experience around you without having to suffer. You will receive wisdom through every internal message of your emotional body and immediately expand through that wisdom. And so it is. Take another deep cleansing breath, anchoring back into your body, bringing a cord all the way back into the earth, back into your chair. And we're very pleased to answer any further questions.
What is the relevance of volcanic activity right now? Also, are volcanoes remnants of old portals to the universe?
We are the Arcturians. There are several messages we want to share about volcanic activity, and this blends nicely with what we have explained about technology and elements. The electromagnetic field around the Earth is shifting quickly. And there are opposite polarities that are in competition of one another. Earth is expanding. She is receiving so much beneficial energy from the universe. There is a new grid that humanity has created. It is pulsating and finding its new location. And in doing so, elemental properties are shifting, which is going to cause certain weather anomalies. Volcanic areas are typically very potent elemental locations. They hold within them not only crystal and rock and certain supercharged waters and elixirs, but they are often junction points of very significant ley lines that exist within Gaia. So it would be natural to see a certain level of activity taking place in these locations. However, this is being complicated by unnatural and intensified electronic influence on Earth. And to a certain degree, what we are noticing is that the Earth is rejecting a lot of this energy, meaning she's attempting to purge it because it is not natural to who she is. Anything that is not natural to the intelligence of your physical body, your extrasensory fields, is meant to be detoxified. This is how you operate. It is somewhat like your own immune system. When it sees something that is attacking the body, it has a certain intelligence and process through which it expels that toxin. This is a part of what you're experiencing with volcanic activity as well. Gaia is utilizing all of her great power, and especially these very potent areas, to rid the Earth of electromagnetics that are causing certain imbalances to take place, both within the Earth itself as well as on the surface, affecting humans, plants, and animals. What you may begin to notice as you walk into the next 10 to 20 years is a very intense transition and shift in weather patterns. This is not something that we fear, even though we believe it will be used as a tool to control and to limit human consciousness. We think it is a part of the alchemy and introduction of the fifth dimension on Earth. If you look back in history throughout time, weather patterns and geographic locations have changed in the degree of temperature, for example, that is normal. And this is always going to happen. So fear not that you are experiencing something that is catastrophic. We think it is a temporary period of adjustment that may certainly continue for a while.
I've been having crazy dreams that make no sense to me. Is this something that's happening to others?
More Quan Yin. Dream state is such a very beautiful and important container for not only life review, but connecting with those who are now willing to initiate with you in other life forms. This is intensified for multiple reasons. We see so many souls who are deliberately focusing their attention on meditative practices. This is going to have a very natural effect on how your astral and energy fields travel and move between worlds. But also, it is a time of great resistance. During your waking hours, we see attention placed in areas of the world that may limit a soul's ability to practice in full, meaning meditation is reliant not only upon the time that we breathe, but everything else we interact with throughout the day, the quality and quantity of our ability to connect is a lifestyle that we are willing to create. But so many have been focused deliberately and physical. And these times are purposeful because we must rearrange the physical things in our lives to prepare for great times of transition. But because of this, we will find that during our sleep hours, when we release resistance, because our minds are at rest, we will travel beyond the veil far more actively. And we have installed a level of consciousness that is more aware of these traveled events and may experience them very viscerally. This is what we anticipate is happening. But we must also explain that the level of crystalline vibration that many are achieving within their fields is going to accelerate time travel in general. So using this modality wisely during your waking hours can actually have very beneficial results, where we are focusing our astral travels in some direction that is beneficial to serve our lives or the lives of others. We may find that this allows us more restful periods of sleep because we are now creating a time that is a constructive outlet for our light body to travel.
Are these higher frequencies having a healing impact on the Earth or on the health of the planet itself?
We are the Pleiadians, and this is a very complex question because there are so many things that are happening right now, vibrationally and otherwise, that are healing in nature but are not being perceived this way. So we can confirm a few things, and these have already been noted in this transmission. The amount of plasmic light that you are working with is more than you have ever received in this timeline or in your lives. And plasmic energy contains all bandwidths and spectrums of dimension. It is somewhat like working with the rays. We know some of you are working with the rays of consciousness. Plasmic light is a rainbow crystalline vibration which contains every spectrum or ray of consciousness. So what that means is information is streaming into the earth. Now, this is healing simply because information is valuable. It is not just that automatic changes are happening to the earth itself, but more so that the consciousness of every human being is upgrading. And when consciousness upgrades, when it operates in a higher dimension, anything that doesn't match it must be purged. So we'll give you an example. Some of you may have used certain healing technologies, like a harmonic egg, for example, which comes from our star system and many others. And you step into these frequencies, and they shift you so dramatically that for a period of time, you may purge. You may not feel quite yourself for a week or a month. And what's happening is you have raised to such a certain level that anything that doesn't match that level is going to come to the surface very quickly and purge through physical, through the emotional, and through the mental bodies. Now, the reason this happens is you are designed to always ascend to the highest common denominator that you are holding as a vibrational being. So imagine this example as being the microcosmic vision of what plasmic light is bringing to the whole of the earth. You are literally witnessing the purging of densities. These are physical forms of density and otherwise that can no longer exist here in the future. But the problem with this that we most witness as intergalactic beings is your perception of what is happening. You believe that if something is coming to the surface that is dense or dark, you have done something wrong. And in that perception, you complicate the healing. You put a condition in the way, or you imprint it with some belief, and you may capture it and bring it back into your energy field. So we see somewhat of a circular motion sometimes, where things are purging and coming to the surface, and because we believe they are real, we have done something wrong, we are perpetuating the energy or holding on to it in a certain way. What else must be considered is the amount of work that humans have done on themselves. It is hard to imagine that Earth's water bodies and soils, elements are a part of your own. But literally there is a connection, an etheric cord that runs between you and Sophia's womb, birthing every element on Earth. Those of you who are physically walking paths of detoxification, for example, are making a huge impact on the Earth plane. And simultaneously, this must have an effect on each other. So healing is bound to happen. The more that we ascend, the less that we hold on to anything that needs to be processed that doesn't match our vibration. And this will continue. While it may be witnessed as something that you do not desire, it is simply a period of transmutation and a transitory release of all that does not serve you.
I have a question on addiction. I feel like I'm escaping into fiction and food lately, just feeling overwhelmed, but at the same time feel very energized. Is this just the timeline we're experiencing right now?
We are Quan Yin. These periods of dormancy are not to be criticized or judged, because your soul is always doing exactly what it must in any moment. We know this is not the societal norm, and there is a belief that you should always be productive and creating in the world, and you will always create when the time is right. But consider also all that we have brought in about higher vibrational energies, plasmic and otherwise, the great central sun and influx of vibratory energy and information. This is a great deal to integrate. And sometimes we will rest in physical while we are allowing light to find its place. And our attention is taken elsewhere. We are grounding ourselves with physical forms of consciousness, like food. We are entertaining ourselves with things that may have no logical place in our area of service, because we are not meant to pay attention to the rest. It may be too massive and too complicated for us to actually control or to understand. And we're not giving a free pass here for humans to believe that addiction is okay. Addiction is rampant in the carbon DNA of all human souls. There is a great deal of difference between these times of dormancy and what is destructive to the human body, mind, and spirit. And we believe you understand the threshold and the boundary between these two. So ask the question, is this a time of integration, or am I stepping into a pattern that is destructive? And trust the answer, and if it is a pattern that is destructive, we always suggest the following. When we are trying to change the pattern, we are often entangling ourselves within it. The best way to release something from your field that is not supportive of your soul is to focus on something new. Place your awareness, excitement, and attention on something that is bringing new energy into your experience, because new energy is different than the patterns of addiction. It actually changes our own internal pattern and will create a vibratory shift. Some of you may believe this has to be complicated. It may have to be something that is extremely significant in your lives. But any simplistic shift in energy or routine is going to have a profound effect on what you are experiencing. Even in this time, when it may be difficult to participate in physical activities, what you do in your own space, in the sanctuary of your own home, can have a profound effect on your vibration. Our greatest advice, though, always is to be loving with yourself as your own cosmic mother would, looking down upon your human soul and ushering it into its own support, like an angel taking your hand and guiding you into a chamber where you receive nothing but your own reflection in the most loving and profound way. This is the greatest opportunity to heal.
I've been channeling light language from some beings called the Hathors. I would like to know more about this collective. What are the dimensions they live in? What is their purpose with connecting with humans now?
We are the Hathors. There are so many of us that it would be difficult to quantify. However, we are intergalactic beings. We consider ourselves hybrids. We are very ancient and have come from multiple star systems. But we have been focused in the modality of sound. We come with a connection to ancient Egypt especially, and we're present at this time. We are temple keepers and architects. We have a great deal of knowledge in resonance and ensuring that the perfect resonance is constructed in any technology. We see the perfect resonance within the human technology, and we attempt to heal and align that. Our work spans so many different areas of focus. Those that speak to you now are 12th dimensional. We consider ourselves to be the elder Hathors who came to the earth and manifested as hybrids, speaking various languages and blending them to ensure that humanity was able to adopt a certain language that was healing in and of itself. But others have split off into timelines where they have become more physically focused, or they have taken on a more collective or sentient type of reality. You see, light language is the language of the universe. And while certain races have adopted their own language, and we have assisted in that, this is always evolving. And there has been a great deal of influence on the earth from lower vibrational beings that has taken the original sonics of the human language into a lower frequency range. So what you are speaking today is not exactly the language and the tonality that was created or intended for you by your forefathers in spirit. So when we come, we are attempting to move some of these more discordant and lower vibrational or range frequencies out of the human structure and out of Earth. And to do this, we are using your own genetic template. You were seeded from multi-dimensional races. Just as we are, you are hybrids. And so to blend multiple languages and sounds together is to support and assist the activation of your own eternal and internal sound. You see, all of you have this. if you were to strip away everything that you are in physical and everything that you are in spirit, you would hear the original Om of Earth. But that Om would come through you with a certain dialect, with a certain volume and tone, relatable to your divine plan and your uniqueness. And this is ultimately our greatest fulfillment, is to share some activating force that sonically tunes you to your unique expression. Those who we work with are often conduits of this in some very significant way, and we are pleased to continue this work through and with them.
Could you conclude the session, please?
Yes, we are Mary Magdalene. All of us who are here are in such great appreciation for your attention and willingness to share with us today. We have gotten just as much from you as you have from us, and we wish you many blessings as you integrate these energies. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here and helping make this possible. We're going to take a short break. Barb and Ethan are up next, so you don't want to miss that. We're going to go offline for a minute, then we'll be back online. And if you're here in the room, we're looking forward to seeing you. Hang out. Take care.